spoof on Pokemon. So it's a live musical, and I'm playing the role of the professor. So it's completely based on Pokemon without ever using the name Pokemon. So
is it like a copyright-free thing?
Yeah, copyright free. So it's called Balls! Exclamation mark.
Pokemon, Pokemon, Pokemon. Let's do it.
Beginning of the series, so that kind of stuff I think I have some maybe interesting things about, but I'm also curious to know what you're curious about. So,
how about Wild Missing No? I've heard of something called Wild Missing No, or Missing Number, like a character in Pokemon. I think it was like let me find a picture of it.
that may be something I don't really know about.
I've never played Pokemon, but I've heard about this. This thing? Are you familiar with that? Okay, so it's a glitch Pokemon that if you catch it crashes your game. Okay.
Oh, I'm probably not the person to ask about that stuff since I didn't play the game. So there might be some other, somebody who's has more expertise there. But what would you like to know?
How many different actors for Ash have you spoken to?
Well, I've only dealt with the original, which is Veronica Taylor. So we started at the same time, we ended at the same time, and then whoever followed, I wasn't involved with. So that was for the next group. Nintendo. It's sort of a boring backstory, but we were all signed to 4 Kids who produced all the episodes for the bulk of the series. When we got up to the 10th series, Nintendo decided to take bids from other production companies to see to produce the next seasons, and the other. And so I think 4 Kids was assuming that they would just continue with them. However, another production company, Duart, underbid them, and Nintendo accepted the offer. But all of us doing the show were all signed to contracts with 4 Kids. So it just became like a legal thing where 4 Kids could have released us from our contracts, in which case we would have just moved over and continued doing them. But they said, no, you're under contract with us, and most of you have signed 2 years in a row, so we're not releasing you. And Nintendo said, okay, that's not a problem, we'll just hire other actors. So that was their way of saying thank you. After 10 years of hard work, they just replaced us all. Yeah. So needless to say, it was shocking and infuriating and very hurtful. So
I could see that.
My son, who grew up with it, was really angry. That his dad was fired. I mean, they just didn't renew our contract because we were still under contract with somebody else. So, and for many years, I just was angry about it.
I'd be too.
And I think rightly so, because the characters that we created, that we brought to life, are really our creations. And so they took the template that we created and just moved on with other people. So that was a hard pill to swallow. And but what happened was many of my fellow original voice actors started appearing as guests at these anime conventions. And so a little light bulb went off, and I said, well, instead of being angry, maybe I can join that party. And to my great surprise and pleasure, there were many fans that were just hungry to meet us and to make closer contact with us. So that's what started to happen, and I'm very happy because Pokemon has only grown in stature over the years, and when you think about it, everyone goes back to those original episodes, and that is what resonates in most of your lives. Those episodes, which, or you grew up with the series, and it's the greatest compliment in the world that the fans have stayed loyal to us and the voices that they grew up with, which, I think that's a good testament to our work and the commitment we made to it. So it's been a really wonderful discovery, and I get to meet people not just all over the country, but there's foreign countries. There's UK has reached out to me, the Netherlands, any countries that still have a solid English-speaking population also heard these episodes. So that's a pretty big reach. So it's very gratifying to me.
My older brother used to watch when he was a kid. He had a bunch of VHS tapes, and that's how he watched Pokemon. It was before my time, so I never really got into it. I was into Ben 10, but
right.
I saw you guys were going to show up here, and I thought it'd be cool to ask questions on his behalf, but he has not responded to me yet.
Well, my brother asked me a question. He said, "What is one of your favorite starter Pokemon, if you have one?"
Well, yes. I mean, I've been asked that many times, and I always say that I consider all Pokemon are my children. But if I had to choose one, I would always go with Pikachu. And I don't think there's any surprise there. They all have great qualities, but if you think about it, the only Pokemon that I entrusted to take Ash on his journey was Pikachu. So that meant Pikachu meant a little more than any other ones there. So that is my choice. And I'm sticking to it.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Any other burning questions that you've been dying to ask, Professor Oak?
What's your opinion on Magikarp?
Well, if it's broiled, it's delicious. So I wouldn't deep fry it. It's funny because there's a fish store. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and there's a fish store in my neighborhood, and I've been going to them for years. And it finally dawned on me, looking at the age of the guys that work behind the counter, I said, I'll bet these guys were Pokemon fans when they were younger. So one day I finally said, hey, can I ask you a question? I said, when you guys were younger, did you ever watch Pokemon? And they got really serious. They went, why? And I said, well, I did a voice on the show. And they go, who? And I said, Professor Oak. And they totally all lost it when they heard that. So
And I prove it, and then you just speak in the voice. So
I went home, and as you can see at my table, I have a trainer card that I put myself in, a photo trainer card. And I came in and I autographed it to them. And they immediately, they had a frame ready, they slapped in the frame, and it's on the wall at the fish store. And I'm happy to say, Daniel Craig, former 007, he lives in my neighborhood too, so he's on the wall, and right below him is me.
That is so great.
So I'm right below Daniel Craig at the fish store. And they also, that day, they wouldn't let me pay for the fish, so I guess it works out. So I have I have two jokes that when I go and I say, how's the Magikarp today? Is it fresh? Or I say, I only came in for the halibut. So that's the other joke. So those are my fish store jokes. Anybody, anybody else?
Stuart, how did you get into voice acting?
I started, well, a buddy of mine, there was a radio station that was like the rock and roll station called PLJ. And in New York, so WNEW was the old folks version, and PLJ was the rock and roll station. And my friend, he wrote, voiced, and produced a lot of the commercials that ran on the station. So he had a pretty good setup, and so he knew I was interested in starting. So literally after hours, we went to the studio, and he helped me put my first demo tape together. And I did it by clipping out ads from magazines, newspapers, whatever. And we did a selection of stuff, and I made up a few things. I sent it out to a bunch of agents. These are when cassettes were what you would use. And wouldn't you know it, but I don't know, maybe they were out circulating for 3 or 4 or 5 months. I get a phone call, and this agent who just came into this agency said, I just took over this office here, and there was a pile of demo tapes. And he actually, instead of throwing them in the trash, he actually listened to all of them. And he goes, I really liked your voice, and I'd like to know if you want to start working with me. And I went, absolutely. So I started working with this agency, which was called STE at the beginning. It's changed its name many times. And he would send me out for commercials. So I don't know if they still exist here, but there was Acme, a chain of supermarkets called Acme Supermarkets. And they had a big contest. And it was called Bring It All Home from Acme. And I booked this job, and I remember going in for the session, and they gave me a pile that they said, well, this is a tag for this region, and this is a tag. So there were like quite a few of them that I was doing in the session. And I did not realize it, but every one of those tags was the equivalent of an individual session fee. So I maybe was there for an hour or so, and I went home, and about 3-4 weeks later, I go to my mailbox, and there's a 9x12 manila envelope with my agency's name on it, and I open it up, and there are session fees, separate things, checks for all of those things. And I took an adding machine, and I started adding it up, and I think it was over like $3,000 in that, all the checks, and literally the tears were running down my face, and I went, wow, this is actually a very good thing. And I will say, to date, that probably was the best voiceover job I ever did for one commercial thing. But I did some freelance stuff, and then a friend of mine who had been a former actor, and he got disillusioned with theater. He went back to law school and became a very successful lawyer, but he still knew people in the entertainment business. So one day we were talking, because we lived in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, and he said, a buddy of mine is putting together this new animated show, whatever that is, and they're looking for character voices, and maybe, give them here's the number, give them a call, tell them you know me, and they'll set up an audition for you. So I said, great, okay, great. So I call up, they set up an audition, and I went in, and they would show me pictures of the characters. They didn't play any of the voices because all they had was Japanese dialogue, which doesn't really translate to English. And I looked at this character, and I came up with a voice, and about 2 or 3 weeks later, they said that we'd like you to do this voice, and
So you
started doing it.
You had creative freedom with it?
Pardon?
You had freedom to express it your own way?
Well, they didn't know what they wanted, so they were looking for voices and ideas, and I came up with something. if you ask me what it was at the time, I don't really remember. So when I started doing the series, they would play me back my audition tape because there was a certain quality that they liked. And so I used that as my guide. Every session, they would play it back for me. So then I was doing my first game, which I think might have been Snap. And we go into a studio to record, and there's an executive from Nintendo who came from Japan. And he doesn't speak a lot of English, but he's in the booth with the director and the technician, and we're doing the thing, and I'm running down lines. And he stops me, he gets on the mic, and I hear him going, no, 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 no. And I'm going, no? You know, and he thinks a second, and he's trying to come up with the word. So what comes out, he goes, more oki. That's what he said. More oki. And I'm like going, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? And suddenly I go, oh, the oakiness is the little crack in the voice that I was doing that I wasn't consciously aware that I was doing. And that's what he liked about it. So I went, okay. So from that time on, they didn't have to play my audition tape. I didn't need anybody to remind me. I knew exactly who Oak was. Yeah, I was doing it unconsciously. So now I did it consciously because we put a label on it, you know, and which I think is a very funny story that a guy who didn't speak much English really helped me solidify the vocal quality that I was doing. So, and those were the early days, you know, and the other thing that I've told the story is, you know, I'd go in and I'd do a session and then you go home, and you know, a week would go by or 2 weeks, and I didn't think anything of it except that it was a fairly steady job for me, and I was happy to have the work. So let's say in the first season, I'm not watching them aired. I don't think I ever watched, you know, one of the episodes. And I'm walking down Midtown Manhattan, and I pass a newsstand, and the cover of Newsweek magazine that week, on the cover is Ash and Pikachu, and the headline says, "The Pokemon Phenomenon." And I went, I'm in a phenomenon? I didn't know. I really had no idea. I feel like an idiot, but it didn't occur to me how big this had grown in a year. Stopped me cold, and it's only continued. I mean, it has the most amazing staying power. There's a lot of other series that come and go, but I don't think. I mean, Pokemon is like mammoth. It's just like a giant, and you know, even after we stopped voicing it, it has just continued, and I'd say the loyalty of the fans is astonishing to me, and I'm I'm grateful for every one of you, and it's worldwide. I mean, it's you know, realizing how big it actually is kind of an amazing thing. Like I said, a lot of gratitude. You missed some great stories. Well, as long as you're here, do you have any questions that you've been dying to ask?
Oh gosh, now I feel like I'm put on the spot. What's been asked already?
We favorite starter,
Favorite starter.
how he got started,
What was the
and-
favorite starter?
Pikachu,
Pikachu? Okay. Yeah, I knew that the Pokemon was favorite Pokemon.
and opinion on Magikarp.
Oh, okay. What about, do you keep up with like anything going on with the games nowadays?
No.
No? No? Fair? That's completely fair.
Yeah, it's like I do the voice, or I did the voice, and you know, I'm glad that the fans are so devoted to it, and I always say you probably know more than I do about it, so you know I can't really answer those technical questions because I didn't study it. I read the script and did the lines, so
Yeah.
that was the best.
But you're the professor.
I'm the professor. That's right.
You never watched any of the episodes?
Probably not.
So you were just like reading off a script when you were going with it?
Well, at that point, we acted to the video. The video
Oh,
came.
okay.
So I wasn't doing it in the dark. We had
Okay.
we had to sync
That's
up.
impressive.
No, we had
Be
to.
like, what do you think Pokemon's about? Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. What we did was, since the video came from the Japanese version, we had to sync up our English dialogue, which we call lip flaps. So the lip flaps had to match. So even though the script was rewritten in English, they had to start and stop at the same time. And if it didn't, you had two possibilities. You could either speed up or slow down your dialogue, or we would come up with a one-word substitute that had a syllable less or more that would fit. So that was part of what we were doing, was actually fitting the English words in the same space that was allotted in the Japanese version. And I think we, to our credit, to the director's credit and our technicians in the booth and us, we did a pretty good job of syncing it up. One of my favorite, I think it was in the movie, when doing full-length movies was great, because then you got to do your characters in a long form. And in Pokemon 2000, Oak actually has some more dramatic things to do, and he understands something ominous is happening, and he's like the harbinger of all this. So I loved having more heft to the character at that point. We could still be silly in certain scenes, like Mr. Mime showing up and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the movie, I think we were getting out of, I'm still fuzzy whether it was either a Jeep or a helicopter, because we're running trying to find out where Ash is. And I jump out and I hit the ground and I suddenly do this. And I think the line that was written is like, "Oh, my back." And I thought, well, that's not really funny. So when we were in the booth, and I said to the director, I said, "Can I try something?" So when they played it back, and I went, "Ooh, my lumbago," and that was, and I wrote that line. So they really liked it, and it got to the movie. And I remember being in those days when the movies premiered, they premiered in a movie theater.
Yeah.
So I took my son, who was then maybe about 5 or 6, and we're in the theater, and when that line hit, the whole audience laughed, and I went, "Yes, this is good. This is good." And the other part of it, the first time I took my son, like he was like around 5 or so, and we're sitting in the movie theater, and he really, he could concentrate. He just locked into that movie. So he's really watching. And the first time Oak comes on, and I'm speaking, he does this, and he goes, because he recognized my voice, and that was like the
He didn't know?
best moment. Well, just connecting it, and hearing my voice coming from the screen. So I went, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
That was the best affirmation. So, and we never did, during the entire season, we never did episodes together as a group. What they would do was they would start with one character and they would put in what they called scratch tracks. So either the director or someone else would read the other lines so you could have something to play off of, and then as each actor came in and did, they would replace the scratch tracks. And frequently I'd be in the waiting room and Veronica would come out. And then I'd go do my session, whatever was an hour, and then waiting room was Eric or somebody else. And that's the way it always was. And I think they managed to sync us up and make the dialogue flow like we were actually talking to one another. The only time I didn't do that was one season of Ninja Turtles where I played a guest villain. I was Dr. Dome. And so we did this session, and all the Ninja Turtles, we all were in one big room, each had their own mic, and I had a mic, and we actually did the scene
Pretty cool.
standing at our mics, and I went, well, this is pretty cool too, because we're actually feeding off each other's energy, you know. And I guess the Pokemon, I guess they thought they had more control vocally and in editing and stuff if they did it one at a time. And you know, whatever works is right. So I've had it in both ways, and they're all good.
Yeah.
Let's see what else.
How did the role in the first place?
You ever had any memorable bloopers?
Oh.
Memorable bloopers? Yeah, but that I can remember. You get punchy after a while if you're doing like a long session, and then everybody gets kind of punchy. So it's like, you know, or you get that thing where you mess up the line, and every time you do it, you're messing it up. So I don't remember a particular one, but usually in the course of a session, if you're doing it more than an hour, you start to, you know, you get loose, and then you get a little, well, what's the word? You get jiggy with it, you know. You know.
So is there anything else, like any other projects like you're working on now or want to get into?
Well, the thing is, I've had an ongoing theater career, and I do guest spots on television too. So you could have seen me on Law and Orders, or The Good Wife, or Blue Bloods, or The Blacklist. I mean, I've done all these series. A couple of years ago, when Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was running, I was in one episode of season 4. So, you know, so I turn up that way. I did 5 Law and Orders over the years, you know, which go back a long way, because, you know, I realize now that show's been running forever. And I was with people who either have died or have retired. So I did my first one with Jerry Orbach, who was kind of legendary on that show, and had been a Broadway musical theater actor before he started doing Law and Order. So, and then I did one with, don't tell me. He's Sam Waterston. Sam Waterston, who you know was on the legal team for years and years and years, and I think he's pretty much retired at this point too. So he still turns up on TV. The weirdest one I did, I had a 2-scene role where I was an attorney. There was some murders taking place in a private prep school, and so there were 2 scenes. One was with Sam Waterston and his like second attorney, and the judge, who was played by the humorist Fran Lebowitz. So we had one scene where we come into her chambers and we're arguing, and I'm defending the kid who's accused, and Sam Waterston, of course, is the prosecuting attorney. He wants this to go forward. So we're back and forth, and it's a pretty big scene. And then the second scene was the kid giving testimony in a conference room, and we're all sitting around and we're listening to the kid giving his testimony. So I was so excited. I had this 2-scene role, and we had family over for dinner. I said, we got to go to the TV because there's Law and Order's on, and I'm so excited. I'm really, you can't wait to see this scene. And the show starts, and before I know it, I'm sitting in the conference room and I'm doing this. And the kid's giving his testimony to the rest of us, right? And about 5 minutes go by, and I went, what happened to the scene in the judge's chamber? The scene was completely cut. So I got paid because one scene was done on a Tuesday. They held me for Wednesday, and we shot on a Thursday. I got paid for 3 days for basically a silent bit to sit and do this at a conference table. And I went, boy, this business is really, it's really tough, you know. So, but that was the worst I think it ever happened. Most of the other times, the seasons worked very well. And I did one on the Blacklist, which was a season finale. And you know the director John Waters, who did Hairspray, and he's kind of an avant-garde director. He was a guest star, and I played his tailor. So I got two celebrities because James Spader was the star of the show, and he comes into my tailor shop, and I'm measuring John Waters for a suit, and that was kind of cool to do that with them. Mrs. Maisel was fun. So I like doing, you know, and I have a thriving theater career. So if people know, you probably all know Little Shop of Horrors. So and I was on the road with Wicked for 15 months. I was the wizard. So a national tour.
Did you ever see What's Behind the Curtain? Wizard of Oz.
Oh, what's behind the curtain? It's me behind the curtain.
What else is behind the curtain?
Pay no attention. That was, I love that show. That's really, it's a great production. If any of you haven't seen it, the national tour goes all over. In fact, I was here with Wicked in Columbus doing the national tour. So that was back in 2016. So when I'm not doing voiceovers, and to be honest, I'm really not doing much voiceover work at this point, which is kind of ironic because I have a very well-known voice. But like I say, I do theater, I do television, and I'm actually going back into doing a little off-Broadway spoof on Pokemon. So it's a live musical, and I'm playing the role of the professor. So it's completely based on Pokemon without ever using the name Pokemon. So
is it like a copyright-free thing?
Yeah, copyright free. So it's called Balls! Exclamation mark. And it's really funny. It's original. It's got some great songs in it. So I'm having we're doing a performance on May 21st. Down in the Lower East Side of Manhattan at kind of a cabaret space. And who knows, maybe I'll have a hit a hit musical loosely based on Pokemon.
Well, if I'm in the neighborhood.
So what's it called again?
Balls. It's called the Balls, the Monster Catching Musical.
And when is that, you said?
May 21st. Which is next week.
Oh, okay.
So I actually have the script in my hotel room, and I'm brushing up on the lines.
It's interesting.
And I have, instead of a white lab coat, I have a blue lab coat. I have yellow checked pants and a different kind of shirt. Nothing's the same.
Yeah.
And that's in what, New York?
Huh?
Or NYC, is that right?
Yeah, caveat.
I'm gonna link this to my brother.
Yeah, we got a lot of publicity, and once I joined the company, I did a lot of interviews and stuff for it. So, but it's very funny. It's really funny. It's a little outrageous. It's on the borderline of tasteless, but but not terrible.
And that's just going to be in New York? Do you think you're going to?
Right now, probably just New York. I mean, I think what they're looking for is a theater that they could have an extended run.
Okay.
So we did, when we first started, after they announced I was in it, we had 3 sold out audiences, which went really, really well. It's exhausting. It's a very energetic show, and I do a lot of running around, but fortunately I can still do that. So you would ask, I told the story about how I got the job.
Oh, yeah.
A buddy of mine had been a former actor, and he knew who was producing. All he knew was a new animated show. That's all he knew, because there was no you know, anime wasn't a thing really. So basically I called them up and went in and like did an audition where I read for 3 or 4 different characters. I don't remember what the other character were, but one was this eccentric professor.
Yeah.
And they called me up a couple weeks later and said, "You got it." So I started doing the sessions, and they'd always play my audition tape back to me to remind me, and the rest is history. So
Very nice. You have no idea how big it was going to be.
yeah, I think maybe if I got a year's worth of work, I'd be very happy.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I was walking through Manhattan and into the first year, and the cover of Newsweek was Ash and Pikachu with the headline that said, "The Pokemon Phenomenon."
Yeah.
And I stopped cold and I went, I'm in a phenomenon? I really, you could have fooled me. I just thought it was just a gig, you know, I was really happy.
And here, over like almost 30 years later.
we're going on 30
it's
years.
still a phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah, I was relatively young when we started, yeah. I don't know whether I've grown into Oak or Oak has grown into me, but we seem to have, we've melded, you know,
Yeah.
over the years, so. Anything else? Anybody else have any burning?
I'm still waiting on him to respond.
Nobody wants to know about my relationship with Ash's mom?
I saw there was a channel called Dorkly that made parodies. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's a YouTube channel called Dorkly, and he makes like parodies of video games. And he has a series called I don't remember the exact name, but literal Pokédex entries.
Oh, really?
And there's a joke one where Professor is sneaking, or your professor is sneaking out the back. Where Ash is walking in, he sees Professor sneaking out the back of his house, and then right after, he makes a joke about the fact that he's only 10 years old going to the woods. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was funny. It's a long series, but he's getting off. He's putting his pants on. It's like pixelated. It's like Mario. And his, what are you doing at my mom's house? And he said, "Oh, you don't worry about that. You should be more worried about the fact that you're about to fight dinosaurs."
That's right. That's right. Well, when I am asked, I always say, all I want to say about that is that Mrs. Ketchup and I are just very, 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 very good friends.
Suspicious amount of berries.
A lot of berries, yes. And that's all you need to know.
Because voice acting is very unique, especially compared to like physical acting. Any tips on getting into that field? Because like I'll do parodies and stuff, but like I have no idea what I'm doing.
I mean, the best thing you can do for yourself is to look through magazines, newspapers, if you see little ads, and do some tests. You know, everyone's got, now you got recorders right on your phone, and you can do, you know, it's a chance to be playful with your voice.
Yeah.
And, you know, literally I put together a demo tape with a buddy of mine who worked at a radio station in New York. So I did the same thing. I cut out things that I thought would be fun to read. We edited them down, and you know, I sent the demo tape out just not knowing. And actually, an agent called me up, you know, a few months later and said, "I found your demo tape in a pile." And he just started working at the agency. So instead of tossing them in the garbage, he actually listened to them.
Well, heck yeah.
And that actually started my career. And that was before I ever did Pokemon, so.
Any roles that we may have not known that you've done that we probably have heard?
Yeah, I was in the Irresponsible Captain Tyler. I was in the Slayers. I was in a series called Chaotic. I love that character. I was this character named Bodil, and he was a kind of a comic villain. So I modeled his voice kind of like Truman Capote because I love that kind of voice, and he did that. And then there was Winx Club. I was That was the closest I did to my own voice, because I played the dad, and he was just like a nice dad. So I just kind of, at one time I could actually use my own voice.
Yeah.
And I did a don't tell anybody, but I did a kind of X-rated one called Twin Angels. Which we all did it under assumed names because it was just a job. I didn't.
Yeah.
But my character was like, there was a small prince who had the body of like a 7-year-old, but he had the libido of like a 20-year-old. So he was always chasing after girls, and I was like his. The guy was like put in charge of him. So most of my lines were, "No, master, no!" running after him, and he was like, he wasn't having it. So that was, yeah. I mean, those are pretty much the ones. I auditioned for a few other ones. They had me come back. I did Koga the trainer while I was still doing Oak, and then after I wasn't doing Oak anymore, I came back for a season and did Cedric Juniper, who was like a professor without the sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know what he was, but they had me do that. So
I found the clip.
you found what?
I found the clip where the professor actually.
Did you? Oh, great. So I don't know. So I guess anything else? Anybody? If not, I think I covered most of it.
I know Pokemons have a lot of different elements like water, fire, all that. Which one did you think was the coolest?
Was the coolest?
Yeah.
Well, water would be the coolest. Fire is also, everyone's very fascinated. You're alternately fascinated and terrified by fire. So I think it's kind of a double-pronged thing there, that we're attracted to it, but we also know how dangerous it is. So maybe that's, I guess that's, that's all.
What about Pokemon design? Like your favorite, coolest looking Pokemon, other than Pikachu?
I think the flying ones are cool. Charizard. I mean, there's some cool ones. I like the funny ones too. I mean, I love like Psyduck and
Magikarp.
Did you ever voice a Pokemon?
Huh?
Did you ever voice a Pokemon?
I never did. No, they never asked me to.
They seem like they had some weird sessions. I know Victory Bell just screams.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. I didn't get invited to that party. I don't know. But I guess they figured, because a lot of the directors and stuff were also filling in doing those things too. So,
Squirtle.
I was one of the few English speaking, people.
Right.
So.
Fair. That's fair.
How about you? You have any question in the back there? No? Okay.
I heard a lot about Ash's mom.
Uh-huh.
Who's the dad?
Who's the dad?
A very close relationship.
Yeah. Are we at time, or?
You got about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, What's interesting is, one of my favorite names, like, long before I got married, long before I had a kid, I liked the name Sam. And I even said to my wife, I said, if we have a kid and it's a boy, I want to name him Sam. And she said, well, what if it's a girl? And I said, it's not going to be a girl. And then when she was pregnant, she said, and I said, I'm serious about Sam. She goes, well, what if it's a girl? And I said, no, you're not having a girl. So she had the baby, and it was a boy, and he's named Sam. And then I realized, I've been working on this character, and his name is Sam. And so Sam is my son. It's my alter ego. So I don't know. I've had this attraction with the name Sam. So It served us well over the years.
It's weird how that stuff works out.
Huh?
It's just weird how that stuff works out.
I know, and that was before I even had a sense of what Pokemon was. So, actually, there were friends of the family. They had two sons. One was Robert and one was Sam, and I love that name, and it's such a cool name. So,
What season did you did your role as Professor Oak cease? Like, how long did you work as Professor Oak?
well, from when the series began, so we started recording probably in 1998, and they started airing in 1999, and till 2008. That was when they ended our reign there.
So, in like generation terms, you basically made it to you did like the Hoenn region, or did you touch the center region at all?
I don't think so. I think it was the first.
Near the end of Battle Frontier, or about halfway through the middle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're aware of Pokemon Roselia?
Not
The
really.
little rose hand?
No.
Okay.
No, they had to carry on without me.
Fair enough.
But
The daughter's name.
yeah.
Yeah, she's in there.
Ah. Great. Well, see, you got a name all set too. So.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a good quality. Pokemon is good for those things. So.
Yeah, it also sounds like it could be an actual name, like at least I'm not.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's a Bulbasaur.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you have to talk in their voice. You know.
So Professor Oak's the one who cares for or raises the Pokemon? Is that right?
Well, I mean, he's devoted to the study of Pokemon. I'm sure he's probably in the Pokemon protection, category.
Did he, as that professor, did you ever get a note or something about the research or anatomy or the Pokemons or whatever that you thought was what? Did you ever read did they ever give you a description of a Pokemon that you thought was crazy, or how would a professor explain this?
Well, I think there's a lot of them that are kind of crazy. I mean, Psyduck, it's do you need a neurotic Pokemon running around? I mean, it's so I think it just shows you that they had a sense of humor. So, and I think that's the quality that I would say was the continuing thing throughout. They could get very serious, they could do battles, but we never missed an opportunity to have a laugh, and I think that's what endeared it to people too over the years. So, in that way, I was the right fit, because that's what I like to do in life, is look for the laugh. If I could, I could talk seriously, but I got to end it on a laugh, because that's what Johnny Carson used to do. He used to watch him, and as serious as his guests would be, he could have the most serious, and then right before the commercial, he would come up and the audience would break up and they'd go to commercial. I said, that's brilliant,
Yeah.
That's the way you want to leave it. So on that note.
One last thing.
Yes.
Could you say one of your favorite lines in the voice of Professor Oak?
No. What, do you have a Professor Oak line that you?
I don't, because I didn't watch. My older brother did. But
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious if you could.
Anybody else have a favorite line? I mean, there's lots of them from Snap that people like.
Yeah.
People like, the ones I like are, "You were close."
That was awesome.
And somewhere I said, "Are you a boy or a girl?" That's another one, which I guess is not really accepted anymore. And then, "Smell you later." So there you go.
I'm satisfied with that.
So I think that.
We appreciate your time, Stuart.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Thank you for taking questions.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you all. All right. Let's all go back to work. Okay.